Hello and welcome back to the HH Gaming podcast brought to you by Hellhades.com. Once again, I'm joined by co-host of the show, Paul or Sphera. And today we're just going to kind of talk about some of the things that have been happening in Raid over the past few weeks. It's been, 2 weeks, I guess, since we've done a podcast. Last week kind of went crazy and disappeared on us. And we're quite late in the week recording this week because usually we record sort of midweek and we're towards the end of the week. So this podcast should be going out on Sunday. So tonight there's like this event going on with the content creators on Twitch. It was a
Clan Boss Draft.
Yeah, put together by Deadwood Jedi. And it's who we got? We've got Deadwood Jedi, YST, Scratch, Cold Brew, and Mr. Hellhades himself. Yeah. All going head to head in the Clan Boss Draft. Now, we thought what would be quite fun is because obviously we're going to watch this live tonight, but this video won't go out until Sunday or maybe early next week. So, Paul, have you been following this at all? And do you have any predictions as to who might come out on top in this event?
Well, I have a unique position because I was kind of helping Hellhades with his Clan Boss tune. Which I mean, it's not really cheating, but at the same time, I've kind of been, we kind of had this thing where we were talking beforehand. It's like, okay, well, what do you really want? What's the strategies going into this? And it's really interesting because it's so easy, I think, for people who just do Clan Boss on a regular basis, who don't necessarily think probably big picture in terms of all the different types of Clan Boss teams you can do. Oh, well, you got to lock down that unkillable really quickly. If you don't do that really quickly, then you're in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in my opinion, like, I was quite surprised the way the draft went, purely because if I was doing this draft, the first champion that I would pick in any draft is Seeker.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is your 2-1 ratio.
Yeah.
You can get to 2-1 without a Seeker boost. But in 9 times out of 10, all the big teams, all the big, the big numbers, they always have, Seeker in there because he gives the increased attack.
Yeah, he also hits hard.
Yes, but it's mainly because he gives the increased attack and the turn meter boost with an extra turn. So obviously you've got people like Deacon. He can provide the decreased defense. It's pretty good. But he doesn't give you the increased attack, and you get so much damage from that increased attack, right? So there are alternatives now. You've got like the Runekeeper Dazdik, which is good pickup by Deadwood Jedi. That's a relatively new champion that people realize could actually work quite well in the Clan Boss team.
Yep.
But yeah, so I kind of have like an inside track. And when we were talking about this before, I was like saying, well, look, you kind of have to approach it. You either go killable or unkillable to start with. And then if you go unkillable, you've got like champion roles that you need to fill. Extender, ally protector, decreased attack, decreased defense and weaken, increased speed if you want that 2-1 ratio. So it's actually really hard to get a draft because, as you saw in the draft, we were sitting there thinking, well, Godseeker's like a must now. Mm-hmm. And Godseeker was taken. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have to go down to the B team. The moment you take Godseeker out, you have a chain reaction of, well, if you're losing health, you're going to have to find healing somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you looked at Hellhades' draft to start with, he has no healing. Mm-hmm. So it means he's going to have to rely on Immortal or some form of like Leech or something in that team. And none of his champions had Leech. I think he said now he has drafted out Kyoku. Well, he has, isn't he? He said that in Deadwood's video yesterday. And the difference with Kyoku versus Asuka is going to shock people. If people want a shock factor, I think they're going to realize, obviously this video is going to go out afterwards. Kyoku is even surprised me. And I know all the numbers in terms of her performance.
It's crazy actually, because I mean, Hellhades is playing this pretty close to his chest, because even me, who I own a business with the guy, he will not tell me how much damage he's done. Now I know
how much damage he's done.
So you've got some inside information. Now on the contrary, though, I am in a private chat with Scratch and Cold Brew. And we spent quite a lot of time last night because we've been talking about Diablo Immortal and things like that, and I got their predictions last night as to where they think they're going to sit within the rankings, and I got a rough idea of where I think I didn't get any exact numbers, but I got a rough idea of where Scratch thinks that he's going to end up.
Okay. Well, the thing with Scratch, he did this team with Double Santa about 9 months ago. It's on his YouTube, and I think he got in the region of 135 million.
Yep.
With an unempowered ninja and Draco and Double Santa. So obviously you can't use duplicates in this draft. So he sacrificed the Santa for Warcaster, and I know that's a drop in damage.
Yeah.
And also he's got a player power limit, and I know he's empowered his ninja. So when you empower a champion, you effectively get a lot of dead weight player power.
Yeah.
That's why personally I think player power is probably a bit of a mistake for this draft, but I understand why we did it, because it doesn't really inform whether a champion is like giga charged for their role. It just means they might have a lot of useless stats like resist.
Yeah, because Hellhades was having to actually not put accessories on his Lydia.
It was ridiculous. Like it was impossible to get a champion in a killable style team because of the stats you would prioritize to be below 300,000 team power. That would on average mean that everyone needed to be 60,000, and we basically built 4 champions and there was 10,000 left. So there's no way that you can build it effectively at that player power limit. So I'm glad they kind of increased it, because I was on direct message with him going like, you can drop some player power, but if you drop it any further, the team isn't going to work, because you're just destroying your team just to hit a figure that doesn't really reflect the problem. Whereas obviously Unkillable, they've got a bit more of an advantage. They don't need defense, they don't need health, so they're already 2 stats down. So I'm glad they changed that rule. But yeah, the thing with Unkillable is, as they've pointed out, you've got 50 turns. So you're always finite in terms of the volume of damage you can deal. Yes, you can tweak your builds, you can try and push a little bit more damage here or there, but you can't like go, oh well, if I survive another 10 turns I can get another 10 million damage or something. You can't do that. You're capped. And the fact that I've seen that team hit 135 mil, I think, in his video, I can't see he's going to do enough, because I think the highest number is going to be somewhere in the region of 180, 170. I think
that's the
because I've heard Deadwood's damage, and I've heard rumors that his Turvold is hitting for. So they
were
near
saying
1 million.
That they think Deadwood's going to have it, and it's going to be about 160, 170.
I don't think Deadwood is going to have it, and the reason why is when you go Unkillable, normally the support champions don't really do much unless you kind of push them into a different way. So, for example, in a typical Myth Air comp, Aresh is good in a toxic set because she's got that built-in counterattack, right? So she's going to apply a poison all the time, but her actual damage is not like substantial. Demither only attacks once. Seeker is good into a toxic set and he does a decent amount of damage, but you're only talking like 10 to 15 million. You're not talking like 30, 40 million. So you kind of like push all of your damage into a single 2 slots. Whereas when you're on something like a killable comp, well, Sandlash is defense-based, so Sandlash is going to do damage. Taragi is going to do poisons. So your support champions are doing more damage. So I think, you might see that the Turvold brings out 50 million or 40 million, but the Demither is not going to be able to get more than 5 to 10, maybe 15 tops, depending on how he's built the tune. Runekeeper Dazdirk, for example, is going to take a turn where he doesn't do any damage. That's Demither's problem. Not that her multipliers are bad, it's the fact that she takes 2 turns where she doesn't attack. So therefore, the only time you can do damage, if you think the way War Master works, is on 1 ability per turn. So her damage is never going to be able to be that high. So I think it's I think there's bias in people's minds because everyone knows that Unkillables are the easiest clan boss to do.
Yeah.
That I think it's going to draw inference to, Deadwood's got Salad. Salad comps are really big. So but he doesn't have Seeker.
I think in general, the community as a whole will be surprised, because the general impression that I got is that a lot of people think that all of the teams are going to barely scrape a 1 key. And I think that's gonna kind of.
I'd be surprised if any of those teams don't double 1 key.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not so much double, but get well over. I would imagine if a key comes in under 100 million, I'll be surprised. The person I'd be more concerned with is YST, not because of the team he's got, but I know his account is not as developed as the others. He's got a younger account, so therefore he hasn't had the gear farming time. He doesn't have the same accessibility to things. You might not have as many speed pieces, the Great Hall. I don't know where his Great Hall is, but in terms of just like pure account development, when you get to really late game stages, Hellhades has been around a lot longer.
Yeah.
Deadwood has been around.
Yeah, and Scratch has got
longer.
some insane gear on his account.
It was quite surprised. Yeah. It was quite unlucky, to be honest, because the one issue we did have with Deadwood's team, with Hellhades' team, he picked Tutora to deal with. One, he needed an increased defense.
Yep.
Because he's got Valkyrie. So you need an increased defense to boost that shield. The second is he's got block debuffs. So he deals with the stun. But the problem is he had it on the same skill. So for anyone who doesn't know, typically in a 2-1 rotation, when you've got a skill like counterattack for Valkyrie, or when you've got it like a 3-turn cooldown that you want to apply, you normally apply it at the start of the first AoE, like the first time that champion takes a turn, because he takes 2 turns per rotation. And then that means it cools down by the time he gets to the second attack on the second AoE. So you have them up for both AoEs. That's how you would use Brogni, for example. But we couldn't do that with Tutura, because that means then his A3, his block debuffs and increased defense skill wasn't back in time for the stun. So it meant that we didn't have a stun solution. Luckily, we found a manual way.
Okay.
to basically use Tutura's A3. So if you had not booked Tutura's A3, it would work full auto. But if you had, it's a bit of a problem because it's a 4-turn cooldown, which means he never A3s in the right place.
So does that mean every 3 turns you're having to manual, or did you full manual? We set up the AI so he wouldn't use A3, and then he'd take it off manual, do the A3 where he wants to, and put it back on. Oh, he went full try hard. I love it. Yeah.
And of course, it's on the test server, right? So he had 4 spirit champions. Yeah. Which means if you go spirit against force, you get 15% extra crit rate, and you also get 20% extra damage on strong hits. Yeah. So on the test server, you're not in any clan. You have to basically push the clan boss to an affinity. So we were sitting there when we were planning this going, if this doesn't turn a force affinity now, we're kind of stuffed. We're going to have to wait another day. And then when it did turn a force affinity, we were like, we don't know if we're going to get this again. So we're going to have to basically do as many attempts in tweaking. I'd say we started with one team, with one speed tune, and we kept tweaking. It was kind of like, I'd find a way to tweak it to get it to where we want, send it over to Hellhades. He'd come back and go, what if we did this? And I think we changed it around about 8 times in about a 24-hour window just to get everything in the right place. Yeah. Because this is the art of doing speed tuning, and this is the art of refining your team. It's where can I put the champion's ability in a way that I get better coverage for the things I need to have up. So the first attempt, for example, we had with Kyoku, because that's who we subbed in. She didn't get the counterattack because of the way that the team was set up and the team order, because of her extra turn. Just obviously, you'll find out how much of a big loss that was. So we managed to tweak it to move it around so that we still had the same ally protection coverage, but we actually managed to get it so that everyone got counterattack. So it's those kind of tweaks can make the difference between, I would reckon that one tweak added 10 million damage to the key.
Nice.
So
nice.
I'm
awesome. So
I'm looking forward to the draft. I think these are my predictions.
Yeah, that's what let's jump onto predictions, because at the end of the day, when this video goes out, this is everyone knows the answer to this anyway. So, who do you think is going to win, and what's the rough damage numbers here?
I'm going to go in reverse order. The person I think that's going to come in 5th is going to be YST.
Okay.
And my factors for that are, you drop Deacon, I heard, which is crazy to me. I don't know why you would do that. He's dropped, he's not got as much of an advanced account. And I think he's using, I don't think he's got enough damage, if that makes sense. He's got a lot of survivability, but I don't think he's necessarily got the coverage of the damage. And I don't think the champions like Taragi, and I think he's got Brogni, are going to be enough. Yeah. So I think YST is going to come in 5th. I think Colbert is going to come in 4th. I think Scratch is going to come in 3rd. And the reason why I think he's got 2 HP based champions in there, or 1, I'm not sure if Warcast is HP based, but effectively his team has got less damage dealers. Yes, he's got a ninja, but the player power will limit his capability of really pushing ninja really hard. He doesn't have an ally protector. When we look at like the Whale Buster, the Myth Buster team, which is Cardiel is what enables ninja's insane damage, because he's doing 500,000 A1s on top of all his other damage. So I think I think that's an issue for Scratch. I think he's going to come in third. And the only reason why I think he's going to come in third is because I think Deadwood is going to have just enough burst in the tier vault to be able to get through. And Salad, I would imagine his team is going to have attack buff coverage issues in the sense that it's going to drop off in places.
Yep.
So I think it means, you might have the Turval do an A3, but will Mashal's A3 match it up? I don't think so. I think he's going to come in second, and I think the main man is going to win.
Do you think?
I think so. I don't think they can beat Hellhades' key. They're going to be shocked by how much damage Hellhades' team can do.
Okay.
I don't think they can beat it.
See, I was putting Scratch first.
Really?
Yeah.
I know Ninja's a bias, but I kid you not. I think his team is hard capped because of the turn limit. Because the thing is, you can't make the Santa do any more damage.
True.
And he's going to have to sacrifice people to make the Ninja +4 because he's giving him 55 resist. He's giving him all that HP and defense.
So my reasoning behind it is probably down to a gear situation. And I
think Scratch has got better gear, so he's going to do better.
I do. I think, but
it's fair.
I just know how ridiculous Scratch has done in some builds. I think I don't really know about the rest because the problem is all 5 of these guys are awesome at doing builds. Especially Clan Boss. Yeah. I think Cold Brew's slightly at a disadvantage because he hasn't got Armager in his team. He basically loses that static
Armager is defense based. You could totally sub it in.
Yeah. He loses that static Armager buff. But no, honestly, all 5 of these guys competing, I think if anyone's gonna show what these teams can do, they're gonna do it. So I think it will come down to almost the strategy of how they went into picking those teams and the thought process that they put behind it. I don't think, although obviously gear will play a massive impact, these guys are still
power limits gear.
Yeah, exactly. As well as that, yeah. But these guys, I feel like they're going to be getting the maximum out of these teams. So I really don't know. But we've got 4.5 hours until the reveal. So with the magic of editing, we'll put a clip here of the results. We'll see
somewhere.
We'll see. Yeah, it'll be somewhere. Joel will work his magic, and we'll see exactly how it was, and then perhaps in the next podcast, maybe we could actually have a chat with the guys and see if they'll jump on and talk about it, do like a summary of the event.
Roundtable.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be up for it, and we can just talk about where we are.
The winner of the first Clan Boss draft ever, with a score well over 170 million, is Hellhades.
There we go.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
Very nice.
But moving on from that subject, other things that are going on in the game is we've got 2 new champions.
We do.
Everyone, woo! 3 champions.
Well, not everyone. The second one is
eventually
gonna take a while,
for everyone. Yeah.
The problem with the second one is you're probably going to pull it before you actually get it for free. But there you go.
Yeah. And we've got Lady Aresh, is it?
Lady Aresh is the new
and Deliana
new monthly login, isn't it? The new daily login. Epic.
Yeah. And
which, I don't really know why we're releasing that type of champion, but there you go.
We'll have a legendary in 2 months, so.
Well, it better be better than Gerd of Bog Bro. I've already told Gerd of Bog Bro. Gerd of Bog Bro was my blimmin' mercy on one of the high value times 10. I was like, thanks. I didn't want a Gerd of Bog Bro. I'm about to get one. And it's not even a good faction, Gerd of Bog Bro. The name just irritates me. Bog Bro.
Bog Bro.
But I tell you why I despise Gerd of Bog Bro, because whilst we're on this topic of
clearly you've got a personal vendetta here that you need to voice. So.
Requires you to lose parts of her kit to enable it.
Okay.
Because her A3 is like, oh well, look, if you don't have accuracy, you can place this without needing accuracy. However, your A2 then doesn't work. It's like, why? It's like a leak of the champion guide I've just done recently. The A1, the second hit will always crit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but the A2 doesn't always crit, and the A1 doesn't always crit, and the A3 doesn't always. So what's the point of the A2? The 50% chance that the second hit is irrelevant to me. It's a wasted effect. It didn't do anything because I can't sacrifice crit rate to enable that. And it's the same thing with Gerda Brogba. You could sacrifice accuracy and get different effects, or you could run it with accuracy and get different effects. But you can't have both. And the fact that you can't have both means that her kit just feels bad to use.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not a terrible champion in the sense that, she's a poisoner with a cleanse.
Yeah.
There's value in some places. Would I use her? Probably not. She's going to go in the vault, I'd imagine. And the annoying thing is with pulling a dupe of hers in a bad faction, because there's not that many champions that in the Ogrin legendaries that are really kind of crazy. We're talking probably at the moment War Mother. That it?
Kind of looks a bit like War Mother as well.
I don't think there's another champion in the Ogrin tribes that is crazy good for legendaries. I could be wrong, of course. I know War Mother's the main one at the moment, being the fact that bombs are a bit of a meta. She is the best bomber. You put her with Gaius, she can do some work. But even then, you're probably just going to take 10% attack and then peace.
I mean, you've got Gertuk, who's used for obviously speed running.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean,
yeah, you're right though. And Gergo as well.
I do have Gergo. 10 speed on Gergo would be nice, I suppose.
Yeah.
But still, do I really want to be blowing my mercy on Gerda blimming Bogru?
Probably not, no.
It's like, good lord.
We do have two interesting champions. Deliana is cool.
Well, let's cover Lady Aresh first. So
yeah. Go from the epic to the legendary, I guess.
Let's go from the disappointment to the more interesting.
Let's talk about the one that people aren't going to get for 2 months.
Lady
anyway.
Aresh effectively is actually a well-designed champion, in my opinion. She buffs herself on a 4-turn cooldown when it's booked to give herself increased attack and increased crit damage, and then she gives herself an extra turn. Perfect. Means that she doesn't require an arbiter. She doesn't require another support champion to enable her damage. Excellent. She then does an AoE attack. I don't like the second bit of the AoE. So she's got a 20% chance to get an extra turn. If she doesn't get an extra turn, then she gets 10% for every living enemy.
Yep.
I mean, basically the AoE has to kill someone, in my opinion. So, and I would have preferred that 20% to be 50%. I mean, it's not crazy to have a 50-50 chance. It's so unreliable anyway. You can't sit there and go, well, if I don't kill someone, I can get an extra turn and kill someone again, because there's no reliability there. And then the nice thing is she's got a weaken on her A1, but she has got a weaken. So it means you need accuracy. And if you want to use her as a damage dealer, then obviously you've got to sacrifice something to get the accuracy up. Not necessarily all the time now with all the different empowerment stuff for PvE things, but if you're using her in any high-end content, which is probably not likely to happen, you would. And we have managed to get the multipliers out from her.
Yeah, we were looking at that.
Unfortunately, she basically hits just about as much as a Kale. It's not terrible.
Great.
The key thing to remember, this champion can be summoned. So if you're summoning this champion and you are reasonably early game, well, she only requires, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 books, basically, to enable her AoE nuke.
Yep.
Which is actually insane. There is a book on her A3 where she, on her passive, where she gets a veil if she drops below 50% HP. I mean, it's nice. It's not nothing special. But the fact she only needs 1 book on her A3 and 3 books for her damage on her A2, she will probably, she could, I would say, replace your Kale as a nuker, and then your Kale can go into clan boss while you're working on other champions.
Yeah.
So I think if this was like a 60-day login champ, you'd be sitting there going, that's a pretty good champion, right? I mean, it's got weaken.
Yeah, but not 2 years into the game.
Well, this is it. Like, if I'm at day 270 and the chain goes, what is it? Cleo, what was it called? The epic Cleo. No, it goes
it's clear
Cleo,
than the epic.
The Scion epic that everyone needed to have to learn how to use block buffs. And then Gerda Bogbrew. I mean, that's 6 months there. Was it 4? No, actually, it's 4, 2, and 4. That's 10 months. So you're saying 12 months after the 270. So what, 2 years into the game?
Yep. You're not going to use her.
You'll pull her before you get used at. So I think that's the mistake. But as a champion independent of that, she's solid. decent base attack. She's squishy, but DPS champions tend to be. You know, she buffs herself, she gets an extra turn. You could put her in Relentless or Reflex and just watch her go ham. The A2 is a bit unreliable, but, you know, it's a 4-turn AoE nuke. It's a bit low, but,
She just feels a bit lazy, to be honest. Even her artwork, I feel like they just needed to chuck out something, so they did, to buy time to create a new champion.
This champion has been in the works for a while, because obviously in terms of the way we look at the code, we're on like champions that are around about the 7,500 ID now. Every champion gets given a 10-point range. So you start 7,500, 7,600, 7,700, that kind of thing. I should say 7,510, 7,520, 7,530, 7,540, right? But this champion was basically given an ID of 6,530. So effectively, she's been in the back end of the development cycle for a while, and they've put her to one side and not only now released her. So yeah, it's reasonable to kind of go, well, we released this champion because we needed to give someone a new daily login.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like.
In the long run, I mean, if they don't want to give us shards and they don't want to give us any good champions, just give us something more valuable. Like, I don't know, just give us energy even, or like give us better glyphs.
Yeah.
Like, I have no value when you've taken 2 of my spots up for a fragment champion I'm likely to pull before I actually get the champion. Because even in my position where I'm about to get good at Bogbrew,
it's some CVC points though.
Yeah, for sure. What I meant is, I mean, it's epic, but it's 250. It's
I know.
But for someone like me who's about to get good at Bogbrew, I've still got 2 months to wait. So the chances are I could end up pulling this champion from a 10 times 2 ancient.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, wow, that feels so underwhelming. Yeah, they need to do something about it, because I think the champion is never going to be considered good, even though I think for an early to mid game player, it's a solid champion.
It's fine, but by the time you get it in the daily logins, it just doesn't have that same value.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the same thing with the Forge Pass. I felt was the main issue was for an early to mid game player, the Forge Pass was an excellent offering. From a mid to late to end game, it started losing value quite quickly, and they didn't change the reward track to reward later accounts, which is surprising because they tend to do that a lot. You know, going on to the Deliana chase, you get better artifacts on the Deliana chase the more developed your account is. So they have systems and mechanisms in place to offer different levels of progression, better rewards.
Yeah.
So I just think, you know, why can't they give you ninja fragments if you haven't got ninja? I don't know, something like that. Something that's people actually want.
Don't bring that one up.
It's just, you know, thrown in a random epic because you need to fill a spot is the same thing with the Doom Tower champions, where it's like, well, we need to give someone a reason to do secret rooms. Here, have some more epic and legendary champions that you still have to get in the chain. You can't choose them. You can't pick which one you'd want. Because actually, LeBurger is a pretty good option.
But the thing is, you know that this entire podcast now, there's going to be that one guy who out of this entire podcast is just going to pick up on the fact that you mentioned Ninja. And it's going to be in the comments.
Yep. I'm just doing it. I'm farming comments. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Don't tell them my secrets.
Yeah. It's going to be there, guys. We know.
Let's get on with
you know
about
who
Orb
you
Lady.
Are. That guy that every single time that Ninja gets mentioned in a video, you are there tapping away, complaining that you didn't get Ninja.
Let's talk about Orb Lady, as I'm calling her.
Yeah, because
Orb Lady.
She is cool. And for
Fiction
those
analysis 2022.
Yeah, straight up.
It's cool.
She is cool. The artwork is awesome. The kit is pretty damn cool as well. The affinity. I can't wait
to see her animations. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, the affinity is not great, but it's okay. I thought she was going to probably have more viability in things like almost being a replacement for Kale, which potentially she still could be, but
no.
The affinity is not great for
farm.
Yeah,
but the affinity is not ideal for campaign farming.
Exactly. But you know, for a first character, if you're just starting playing the game and you pick up Deliana, I think you're going to soar through like the content at the start of the game at least, and I think she's still going to have use elsewhere as well. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job. I think it's very cool that they are not limiting her like they did with Ninja and Alexander, that you can still get her after the event. And yeah, I think really that's the way they need to go forward with it. But at the same time, this character is not based on a content creator, which is obviously where the restriction was.
Contracts
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's your overall view, I guess, of Deliana?
So I think this is one of the few champions that I've seen where you can 6-star her early and she still has end game viability, which is rare. Normally with champions, they have kind of like a place in the game. Like people often say Apothecary is the best rare in the game. Yes, but you end up never using them once you start getting a bigger roster, right?
Correct.
It's the same thing with Kale. You know, you probably will 60 him as the first champion you ever get, but once you start getting a better poisoner, better damage dealer, he goes in the vault and then you pull him out for some secret rooms when you need them. With this champion, you kind of can start it off with, right, well, she's my carry, AoE leech, you know, she's got a heal on that A3. There's a strength, and if I fall over, that's her kind of job, decrease the resistance. She's going to help you stay alive, carry your team, and, you know, just keep you alive generally. Bit of damage, maybe in a stun set for control, awesome. But as you get into the game, you you end up not needing that. And then what she does do is becomes pretty good in places like Hydra or High Doom Tower, where resistances are really high, you know. I would have liked it to be that she had some form of unresistibility in her kit.
Yeah.
That would have been nice, especially on that A2, you know, kind of like if she attacks someone and they're under block buffs, then the debuff spread takes effect and that debuff spread can't be resisted. Then I think it's really good. Maybe it's a bit too strong, maybe then, but I just feel like that could have been a little bit more interesting. But she is great for something like Hydra, where there are not many block buff champions we can use. We know we've got Ugo, Umbral's gone up in power now that you can provoke.
Yeah.
They had that new Archbishop guy as well. But then you start going, okay, well, who's next to my block buffs options? You know, you're looking at either conditional based block buffs or not guaranteed block buffs. And those kind of fall apart pretty quickly. So the fact that you get a AoE block buffs on a 4-turn cooldown for 2 turns that also heals, that also fills her turn meter if she doesn't do it, which actually, now thinking of it, that's not that good. But basically a heal with block buffs that you can then apply decreased resistance on top of. It's pretty solid. And it's AoE leech, which means you've got your healing built in there. Healing in Hydra is one of the hardest things to do. There are not many good healers. You know, there are more lately now, the rework of World Painted, a Pardon coming out with the crown. But generally speaking, there are not that many strong, consistent, reliable healers in the game.
Yeah. So
the fact that you're going to get a heal with a leech is great.
And she looks like Storm from the X-Men.
She does look pretty cool with her orbs. So you think as a free champion, look, she's not a ninja.
No.
By any means. She's better than Alexander because she's less conditional.
Yeah, Alexander never really just had a place. He
didn't have anything unique.
Yeah, there was just nothing special about him.
And the unique stuff was all based on him attacking a specific faction, which I always find is really bad because you're never going to be able to reproduce a reliable situation that allows it to happen.
And I feel like he just didn't hit hard enough. You know,
he hit hard enough.
Well,
the problem is he just didn't do anything. Like doing damage in a lot of the game is not necessarily the most important thing. Doing damage and blocking a revive is more important. Doing damage and then maybe doing splash damage, like AoE attacks, is important. Unless you're doing Trunda level damage, and even some Trundas can't do it now. Doing damage is not the be all and end all of situations. It's what else you bring to a team. Because of the, like Hydra, for example, you don't just bring a damage dealer because you just don't have the space in your team for it. You have too much you have to cover. So I think that's the problem with Alexander, was he just didn't do enough of anything he wasn't unique enough. He didn't have, like, for example, Deliana, cool passive. She gives herself accuracy for every HP she has. Okay, it's not a lot. You know, you're probably gonna get like 160 for an 80,000 sort of Deliana. But that's 160 accuracy that you don't need to get in your build. For a newer player, that's insane.
Yeah.
For a later game player, that means you can push better builds, more HP potentially. You know, she's effectively walking into a Hydra battle with half of the accuracy she already needs, on top of the Great Hall, then on top of any empowerment you might put into her, on top of any faction guardians you might have. She ends up in a position where she doesn't need accuracy in her build. The fact she's got strength and on that passive as well helps. So that's why I'm compared to like Ninja, who does that special A2 and the passive, he's unique, compared to Alexander, who is basically a glorified War Maiden.
Yeah.
With damage, you can see why he never worked out. And I think it was just bad kit design.
think, yeah, and I think as well as that, but especially based on, Simple, one of the greatest Counter-Strike players of all time, somebody who's known to go into teams and hard carry. I feel like it's a little bit of a shame that they didn't do more to almost have that interaction with it. I feel like
you don't know what happens in the background, I think, with contracts and things where they rush to do it. Maybe they just were trying to create an identity of like they were clearly trying to tap into his identity as an AWPer in CSGO, so a sniper. And that's clearly what they were trying to target. And I think they just kind of got lost a little bit in terms of, trying to make it a bit unique. I mean, do
you think maybe actually that can come from the input from, because we know full well that Ninja, at least in his video, and even Alexander in his video, said that he had input into the way that he wanted his character to be. Do you think maybe actually it's when these guys say or tell the developers at Raid what they want to see from their character, because they don't play Raid, they don't understand what's going to create a truly valuable champion to the player base, and maybe that's actually got too much influence on the decisions that the team are making with it.
Possibly. I would imagine they would have started the design process of like, what do we want to make? Do you want an Archer? Do you want this? Like, that's what happened with Ninja. What do you want to do? I would imagine, like, looking at it, you can feel like they were trying to tap into the sharpshooter, the sniper. That was clearly like, he's the sniper. We want him to be a sniper. I would have preferred them to go in more on things like, in CSGO, if you land a headshot, it does something different to if you land a body shot, right?
Yeah.
So you could have done something around critical damage or something where, I don't know, if he crits, he blocks revive on a skill. If this attack is critical, it will block revive. That immediately goes, oh, he's interesting now. Might use him.
If I wanted to create a character that was going to truly get hype in the community and it was going to be a free giveaway like this, I'd want to be a counter-attack champion. I think like a Valk style.
I think counter-attack has kind of become dated now.
You say value, that, but
it's just so not needed.
A lot of people still want like the Martyrs, the Valks, and things like that.
I just don't think there's not many situations in this game that I'm sitting there going, oh, if only I had a counter-attack. I don't want a Hydra.
But you're thinking about
Hydra.
No, but you're thinking about high level accounts.
I'm thinking about low level accounts.
Do you think?
Yeah. I would value ally protection, decrease attack, poison more valuable than counterattack. One, because of accessibility, and two, because of what you need to make counterattack work.
Exactly. That's my point.
Example I have.
If I was going to be a free character that I wanted people to actually get hype about, I would go for a counterattack.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't do something like that. All I'm saying is, so like I've seen situations in the past where people go, well, I got Skull Crusher, I'm going to do really good now.
Yeah,
and I cringe. Because Skull Crusher for me is one of the worst. I would say Skull Crusher teams are probably one of the worst teams in Clan Boss now. And that might be quite bit of a statement to make that. And the main reason why is he just doesn't do enough damage on his own. The counterattack coverage is always quite difficult to enable. So you always have like half your team not counterattacking on one of the AoEs unless you're building a specific team. And the power and accessibility of something like the Mythic comps, the Seeker Man-Eater comps, the just standard 1-2-1 protection comps now, like they outweigh your Skull Crusher comps in terms of trying to get stun targeting and thing. Do I think they should add another AoE counterattack? Probably. There's only 3 in the game.
Exactly.
But I think there are bigger gaps in the game that they are putting content in. Like if you said to me, do you want a Hex champion over a counterattack champion? I'm going to pick Hex because of the Mischief Head. I want more options to deal with the Mischief Head. If it was, do you want a counterattack champion over block buffs? Again, I'm going to say block buffs because there's still too much of a gap in that area. Bomb champions, there's not enough bomb champions. You see the value of someone like Gaius because it's like, oh, we now have a champion that could do something with bombs. It's not because
I think if you put it to the community and
they'll all vote counterattack, I'd imagine.
I exactly, and that's my thought process. That if I was going to be a champion going into a game and I wanted people to be hyped about it, That's what I would go for.
Yeah. But I think Alexander was an all right champion. I mean, you had a decreased defense, you had an A1 freeze, you had lots of damage. The problem was it just was so small in stature. It was kind of like they picked Orc and Ogryn tribes. Like they are some of the least used factions in the game. I just said Ogryn, there's like 2 legendaries, maybe 3 that you would use in that faction of legendaries.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it, but it was only when I clicked into it to have a look when we were talking about it before, that actually there's very few legendaries in general in that sort of group. So
we look at the Orc faction, yes, you've got champions like Seer. But in terms of the epics, they're all like kind of old epics. You're talking like Bone Keepers and Shamans and Tolfs. Like none of these champions are used in any high-end content beyond Seer, and they're certainly not used in PvP. So you're relying on coming across them in PvE, and you're not going to be really building a team in PvE that fits a specific faction selection.
You've got Sandlashed, who's pretty cool.
Sandlashed is probably the most arena-based epic, I would say.
What else have we got?
But if you look at the legendaries, you've got Kreela, Robar, maybe Brago, and Warlord.
True.
You might come across the others. Warlord is probably the one you'll come across the most.
I've
seen some Noldar usage.
I think you're right.
Is used in some PvE content, but you're not coming across. So those effects are designed for PvP. It's almost like I'm going into it going, okay, well, I'm going to use Alexander to counter a specific champion because he's got a better effect. Typical to Vlad and Constantine, they target, I believe, the Sacred Order and High Elves.
Yeah, all of these specific factions is just...
So at least with Constantine and Vlad, they targeted the Undead Horde, Demon Spawn, and Knights Revenant for Constantine. And for Vlad, who I think is an Undead Horde? Got to be Undead, surely. Undead.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
So he stole turn meter from High Elves, Sacred Order, and Bannerlords. So that made sense, right? Because who have you got in those factions? Arbiter, Lysandra.
Yeah.
Those are in the High Elves. When we go into the Sacred Order, you have got Cardiels. You have got Astrolons were still being reasonably used back then. You had Venus, that was a possible option that people were using. In the Bannerlords, you have got Cythalias. So you've got champions that are really high usage in arena that he can steal the turn meter of. And I think specifically he's designed to counter the Lys Arbiter combo. Yeah. If you basically take a Vladimir into Lys Arbiter, you get an extra turn. So at least in that kind of pairing, it makes sense, right? I've got Constantine who's going to come in and he's going to block revive on certain ones. And when you look at the block revive champions, which was, I think it was Undead Horde, Demon Spawn, and Night Revs. When you look at those, you've got, Demon Spawn, we've got Kaima, Duchess, you've got Candrathon, Wither, Mortu. I mean, we're already at 5 before we even look at another faction of higher meta. Undead Horde, Siphi, Rotus, Nekret. We've got Bad Alcazar in there if you want to use him for that. Doesn't get used as much, but he is in there. So you start looking at it, you're going, okay, well, at least we've got champions that are in the meta in almost like 50% of the teams, like Hegemon, Night Revs. He's in 50% of the teams in high arena defense. So at least you're sitting there going, well, the pairing makes sense because it's a PvP team pairing. They do damage. The factions match the PvP champions. Whereas when it came to Alexander, it was very much, to my opinion, that none of those, you're talking about 1 or 2 champions out of 600 odd that you're allowing that ability to work against. So then if you take those effects out, you're looking at a legendary champion that has a 50% chance of placing a freeze, places decreased defense, and removes a buff from a target. Yeah.
It's just not that exciting.
I can run War Maiden and do everything that it does to a team with less damage.
That's
damage dealer.
Yeah, that's the trade-off, isn't it? And it's just,
and he came not that far off the Ninja. So obviously Ninja does freeze. on 100% chance. You're going, well, I'm not going to use him over Ninja for, say, Bommel because he does freeze.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use him for decreased defense because there's like 100 champions that can do decreased defense now. So, and I'm not going to use him to remove buffs because I need accuracy for that. So it means he's not going to do damage. It just didn't make sense to me.
No.
But as a champion, I think Deliana is a well-balanced, linear champion in the sense that you can use her early game. She probably is your second or if not first champion you do 6-star.
Yeah.
Because of the carry potential. You'd put her in a stun set early on and she's going to carry you through a lot of floors. And then as you get towards doing Hydra and later on in the game, she'll morph into a Hydra champion and you still have a usage for her. So I think it's a well-designed champion. And keep in mind, there's only 2 champions in the game, I think, or 3 champions in the game that does decrease resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a high value debuff, but it's still
the new
really
toy.
Good to have, especially against someone like Sorath, who has like 600 resist without HP burn.
I'm personally really interested to see some of the stuff that people do with her. Because we know as soon as people get their hands on her, we're going to get a flood of videos come out. And I just feel like she's a cool champion. And I think, well done, Polarium, for this
not
champion.
Useless.
Yeah,
That's the thing. She's not a Lady Aresh.
Also, Polarium, if you're watching our wonderful little podcast here, good job on the flood of new players into the game, because it's good for the community as a whole. We're seeing a load of new people pick up the game and they're getting a legendary champion to start off with. And I think, at the point now, this game's 2 years old, giving people a legendary for free at the start only does good things, because it helps people get to that level where they can start doing the more interesting stuff and they get that kind of the dull grind out of the way quicker. And that's where I feel like people drop off in this game. It's where they get that like flood of XP and energy and things like that at the start of the game. And then you hit sort of mid 30s to level 40. And that's the point where you're just farming level 60 after level 60 after level 60, until you get to the point where you're like, okay, cool, I've got a solid foundation on my account now. I can start building teams. And the quicker we can get more people to that point, the more people that I think will be retaining. But yeah, I think that's a good overview for today. Obviously, we've covered the clan boss stuff, the competition that's going on. So I would really like to see the results on that. But I mean, as I said, we've only got about 4 hours, and everyone who's watching this will hopefully already know the results.
Yeah.
We've got the new login champion, and we've got the new 7-day giveaway champion.
And a tip for everyone: open your account before 9 o'clock. Was it about 9 o'clock? So obviously Deliana's daily reset happens on the daily reset, which is around about 1 a.m. for us in the morning, and different time zones. She will still be active for you to retrieve whilst Champion Chase is still on, and you can get your 500 points on Champion Chase if you want the extra reward. If you make sure you get Deliana the night of the reset on the 7th day. Yeah. If you leave it till the morning and you don't wake up in time, Champion Chase will be over and you won't get your 500 points. And you won't be able to hold that champion back for it either. So you might as well get your points in now while you can.
You've just committed us putting this video out before Sunday then.
Well, you better put it out before Sunday then. Get on it, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thank you so much for listening. As ever, if you do enjoy the content that we put out on this channel, please do like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see you in another video very, very soon. Woo.